In this captivating story, Journey with Chisom, a young girl who makes a perilous pact with a mysterious snake to save her sick father. As she wrestles with guilt and fear, Chisom must confront the repercussions of her decisions and the secrets that threaten to unravel her family. Once upon a time, in a village called Malabu, where the hills stretched tall against the sky and the streams were clear and cool, lived Chisom, a young pretty girl in her late teens. Chisom's father was a vegetable farmer. Her mother sold his vegetables at the market, and her younger brother, Ekena, spent his days chasing goats in the fields. Life was hard, but they managed until one day everything changed when her father fell ill. At first, it was just a fever, but it got worse. His breathing became labored, and his skin burned like fire. They had no money for medicine, and the herbs her mother used did nothing to help him. Some watched as her father's strength faded away, and every day her heart grew heavier. One evening, after fetching water from the stream, Chisom sat by the water's edge. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. She placed the heavy water pot beside her and began to cry. Her tears fell into the stream, mixing with the flowing water. She sang a sad song, one her mother used to sing when times were hard. Her voice was soft, but the pain in it was clear. She cried and sang until it got dark, and eventually exhaustion took over, and she fell asleep under a tree by the stream. When it was completely dark, something cold and smooth brushed against her skin. Startled, Chisom woke up to find a snake slithering over her body, its scales glistening in the moonlight. She screamed and jumped up, running a few steps away, her heart pounding. But then she realized she had left her water pot by the stream. It was late, and her family needed the water, so she forced herself to go back. As she reached for the pot, a soft voice stopped her. "Don't be afraid," the voice said. Chisom froze and looked around, but saw no one. "Down here," the voice said again. Her eyes dropped to the snake. It was looking at her, and she realized with a shock that the snake was speaking. "You can talk?" Chisom asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," the snake replied. "My name is Nyeli. I heard you crying and wanted to help." Chisom was too shocked to move. She had never heard of a talking snake. "Help? How can a snake help me?" she asked, still crouching by the water. "I heard your song and felt your sadness," Njeli said, his voice calm and soft. "I have been lonely for a long time. I only ask for your company. If you sing for me each time you come to fetch water, I will give you something in return." Chisom stared at the snake, unsure of what to say. "What could you give me?" she finally asked. Njeli slithered closer and placed a small calabash beside her. "Every time you sing for me, you will find this calabash filled with money when you return home." Chisom's chest tightened. Money. They needed money for her father's medicine. But could she really trust the snake? She stood up quickly, shaking her head. "I don't want your money," she said, her voice trembling. She picked up her pot and hurried home. That night, when Chisom reached her house, she found her father's condition had worsened. His breathing was shallow, and he could barely open his eyes. Her mother sat by his side, looking more tired than ever. Chisom knew then that they needed money urgently, or they would lose him. The next day, with her heart heavy, Chisom returned to the stream. After fetching water, she sat under the tree again, closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to sing the same sad song. Her voice floated over the water, and soon enough, she heard the rustling of leaves. Nyele slithered out from the shadows. "You came back," the snake said, almost sounding pleased. "I need the money," Chisom said quietly, her eyes fixed on the ground. "For my father's medicine," Nyele nodded slowly. "Then take the calabash," it said. "It will be full by the time you return home." Chisom picked up the calabash and went home, her heart pounding. When she opened it, she almost screamed. The small calabash was full of cash, enough to pay for her father's medicine and more. Her hands shook as she showed her mother, explaining that she had found a job working for the queen as a maid. Her mother believed her, and with the money, they bought the medicine her father needed. His health slowly improved, and for the first time in weeks, there was hope in their home. But the visit to the stream continued. Every day after fetching water, Chisom would sit under the tree and sing for Njele. And every evening when she returned home, the calabash would be filled with money. Her family stopped asking questions, but they wondered how she had found such a good job. One day, however, her father's health took a sudden turn for the worse. He grew sicker than ever, and the medicine they had was no longer enough. They needed more, and they needed it fast. The next evening, Chisom went to the stream, her heart heavy with worry. After she sang, Nyele emerged as usual, its eyes watching her closely. Chisom swallowed hard and said, "I need more money. My father's health is getting worse." Nyele was silent for a moment before speaking. "I can give you more, but for that, you must do something for me." Chisom frowned. "What do you want?" The snake moved closer, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "You must let me sleep with you," it said, its voice soft but firm. Chisom's heart stopped. She had never expected this. She had thought they were friends. How could it ask this of her? She was a virgin, and the idea of lying with a snake terrified her. She shook her head, unable to speak at first. "I can't," she whispered. But then he thought of her father lying sick at home, struggling to breathe. She had no other choice. Her father needed the money, and without it, he would die. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Ah, I'll do it." The next night, Chisom prepared herself, her legs trembling with fear. She went to the stream, sitting under the tree, waiting for the darkness to fall. When night came, Nyele appeared, its body long and sleek, gliding silently toward her. Slowly, it crept between her legs. Chisom clenched her fist, biting her lip to keep from crying out. The pain was unbearable, and tears streamed down her cheeks as the snake coiled around her. When it was over, Chisom gathered her clothes and ran home, crying all the way. The large calabash was waiting for her, full of money, but this time the price felt far too high. She felt ashamed and dirty. She had done something unimaginable for money, for her father's life, but the guilt weighed heavily on her, and the tears wouldn't stop. When she got home, her mother was sitting outside, peeling yams for dinner. "Chisom, are you all right?" her mother asked, her face lined with worry. "I'm fine, Mama," Chisom said, forcing a smile. She didn't want to burden her mother any more than she already had. "I just had a long day." She slipped into her room and lay on her mat, curling into herself. That night, she didn't sleep. She kept thinking about what had happened at the stream, about Nyele, and how she had let the snake take advantage of her. Her father's health was improving, but at what cost? She felt trapped, like she had sold her soul for a handful of coins. Days turned into weeks, and her father grew stronger. He could walk again, and his strength was returning. Chisom's family was happy, but she wasn't. She went to the stream every night, sang for Njele, and lay with it. Each time it got harder to hide her pain. The money kept coming, But Chisom no longer cared. She just wanted it all to stop. One evening, after another painful encounter with the snake, Chisom finally told Njeli, "I don't need your money anymore. My father is well. We have to stop." Njeli's cold eyes watched her. "If we stop, your father will become sick again," the snake said simply. Chisom's heart sank. "But he's healthy now," she protested. "He doesn't need anything more." "If you stop coming to me," Njele repeated calmly, "he will fall ill again." Chisom felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. She had no choice. If she stopped, her father would suffer. She cried by the stream for hours that night, wondering what she had gotten herself into. She had thought the deal would save her family, but now it felt like a curse. The weeks passed, and Chisom continued going to the stream every night. She sang for Nyele, and the snake slithered between her legs, cold and heavy. Each time it hurt, but she kept going for her father. But one night, everything changed. Her little brother, Ekena, had noticed her sadness. He was small but clever, and he always looked up to his big sister. That evening, he heard her crying in her room. He knocked on her door. "Sister, what's wrong?" Ekena asked, his small voice full of concern. "Nothing, Ekena," Chisom said quickly, wiping her tears. "Go to bed." But Ekena wasn't convinced. He could see the sadness in Chisom's eyes and knew something was wrong. So the next evening, he decided to follow her. He didn't tell anyone, not even their mother. He quietly trailed her through the trees, staying out of sight. Chisom didn't notice him. She walked to the stream as usual, set down her pot, and sat under the tree. Ekena crouched behind a large rock, peeking out just enough to see what his sister was doing. Chisom started to sing, her voice soft and sad. It was the same song she always sang when she was upset, the same one their mother used to sing. Ekena watched closely, but nothing seemed unusual. Maybe she was just sad. But then, as the sun began to set and the sky turned dark, Ekena heard Chisom speaking. "Please," Chisom said, her voice low. "Take it easy tonight. I'm tired." Ekena frowned. Who is she talking to? He peeked around the rock, his eyes wide with curiosity. That's when he saw it. A long, dark green snake was slithering out of the bushes, moving toward Chisom. Ekena's heart pounded in his chest as he watched, frozen in place. Chisom didn't look scared. She sat there, her legs slightly open, and the snake crawled between them, its body winding around her. Ekena couldn't believe what he was seeing. His sister was letting a snake crawl between her legs. He couldn't keep quiet any longer. He screamed a loud, piercing scream that echoed through the trees. Chisom jumped up, startled. The snake hissed and quickly slithered into the bushes, disappearing into the shadows. Chisom's heart raced as she looked around, her eyes landing on Ekena, who was staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Ekena!" Chisom shouted, her voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" Ekena's face was pale. What were you doing?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. He was trembling, his eyes still wide with fear. Chisom felt like she was going to faint. She didn't know what to say. How could she explain this? How could she tell her little brother that she had been lying with his snake for money? "Ekena, listen to me," she said, stepping toward him, her hands shaking. "I can't explain." But Ekena didn't wait to hear the rest. He turned and ran, his small feet kicking up dust as he raced back home. Chisom stood there, frozen, tears streaming down her face. She had kept this secret for so long, but now it was out. What do you think will happen next? How will Chisom handle Ekena now that he knows her secret? Will her family discover the truth, and how will Njele respond? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to NaijaTrends TV for part 2. See you in the next video.